My name is Ben Arrona. Hi, everyone. A little background about me before we get started. Let's see. I am a consultant for the SBDC. I've been doing that pro bono, and I finally jumped on as an official consultant a couple months ago. I am a consultant with SBDC, and I deal with restaurants. So anything to do with restaurants, I work with Jeff. I'm a San Luis local. I've been in the restaurant industry for over 25 years. I also teach at Cuesta College. Been teaching history for about 9 years. I am the founder of Benny's Kitchen and Benny's Pizza, and the principal in Benny's Pizza Palace and Social Club, which is a restaurant in San Luis Obispo. So with that, we're going to get started on time management and multitasking tips in the restaurant industry. So the overall themes today we're going to discuss in the role of time management in restaurants is the importance of effective time management in restaurants, impact on customer experience, including operational efficiency and staff performance. And we're going to do a brief overview of front of house, FOH, and BOH. So those two things mean FOH, just so everybody knows. They're going to be on the slides. It's kind of restaurant industry terms. FOH is front of the house. Now, does anyone in the audience here know what front of the house means? What does that term mean? Sue? Juan? Yeah, Sue?
Yeah, it's the person that receives the customer and directs whatever the customer wants to the kitchen.
Definitely. So, correct. It is a larger scale than that. So front of the house will encompass every member of the staff that is in the front of the house, right? So that includes, and I think Sue did a good job of describing maybe like a host, right? Or a server or a bartender. But in front of the house also will include any kind of maintenance people in the front, also bussers, stuff like that, right? So anyone who deals with any operation. So if you break it down maybe spatially, right? There's the area where you eat your food in the restaurant, and then there's the area where the food is cooked. Anywhere where the food is being eaten, right, is the front of the house. Okay, perfect. Back of the house, pretty self-explanatory, right? It's anywhere where the food's going to be prepared or cooked, right? Okay, so today we're going to be talking about effective time management, customer experience, operational efficiency, and staff performance in both the front and the back. So the way I broke up this lecture is we're going to discuss front of the house first and then back of the house. Okay, so front of the house time management, key areas, right? So Sue mentioned customer service, right? So front of the house responsibilities is going to be to make the best customer experience possible for a customer when they come in, right? So what does that mean, right? We're going to have people that greet people when they come in, okay? We're going to have people who explain menus, okay? We're going to have people who take orders, right? Then once that happens, we're going to have people sit down. We're going to have people manage those tables. Now, what does managing tables mean? What is your name?
Marissa.
Marissa. Managing tables. What do you think that means?
I mean, keeping an eye on them, making sure they've got what they need and they're not looking around for the waiter.
Perfect. Okay. And then, of course, order processing. We'll jump into that in just a second. I want to jump back to customer service and give some examples of the restaurant, of Benny's Pizza restaurant. Okay. So with us, we are called a fast casual restaurant. Anyone know what that means compared to maybe a sit-down restaurant?
You order at the counter?
Yeah, right. So Benny's Pizza does it like this. Let's see. In San Luis Obispo, another fast casual would be like, I'll name some big hitters and slow. Firestone Grill, right? What else is there? There's like High Street Deli, right? Those are the really big lunch spots right now in slow. Okay. What does that mean? That you go up, you order your food from the register, then you sit down and then they bring you the food. Okay. Or they call your name out. I think Firestone Grill calls your number, right? High Street Deli is a little bit more intimate. They call your name. Okay. Or they'll run around looking for you in your name. Okay. So now there's different expectations with different types of restaurants, correct? So explain to me, maybe Sue, a different expectation if I sit down, let's say at Lure Fish House. That's a new restaurant in town, right? What's the different expectation of sitting down there than there is, let's say, going to Benny's?
Well, somebody seats you.
Yeah.
And then you wait for someone to come and see what you want. If you want drinks, take your order, see if you want to come back, give you a menu.
Perfect. So that you have a server. You just explained, right, the process and the responsibilities of a person who is serving the table, right? So that's very important to keep in mind when you go to a different restaurant or whatever restaurant you're trying to start, is what decision are you going to make? You're going to do a fast casual, or you're going to do a actual service, right? And this isn't the right lecture for that, but there's benefits and drawbacks for both services, right? But it's good to know, and this is part of the customer service process for each restaurant, is letting the customer know what kind of restaurant you are, right? So in Benny's Pizza, what we tell our greeter, which our greeter, which is interesting too, our greeter is also the front counter person who takes the orders, right? So in a fast casual situation, that counter person is going to be like a host in a more traditional sense, right? They're going to greet the people when they come in. Okay, they're going to explain to them that this is a fast casual restaurant. Okay, and then right off the bat, if they don't understand what a fast casual restaurant is, you explain what a fast casual restaurant is, right? So you're setting the expectations for the customer right up front, correct? And when you set those expectations and you set those boundaries, then they'll have a better experience because they know what to expect, right? Okay, so that front counter person is going to be doing all of that in comparison to a sit down where the host is going to ask if they have a reservation, perhaps sit them down, and then another person, the server, will come talk to them, take their orders, and then another person on top of that, like a food runner, will bring their food, right? Okay, I'm going to mostly stick to Benny's Pizza, how we run it, with the fast casual. Okay, so that's going to be the basic customer service at the beginning, right? Setting boundaries, letting people know what's going on. And then table management, okay? So table management at a place like Benny's would be to, right after the greeter shows them the menu, or the front counter person shows them the menu, takes their order, fills their drinks for them. That's how we do it at our place, right? And it's really important to understand and to remember that you're going to want to follow best practices for whatever business model you have, for whatever space you're in, right? And those best practices are going to be determined by, of course, management and ownership. And then going forward, what works and what doesn't work, right? So everything's going to be based on experience of the people in that industry, or the people who start the restaurant, maybe the people who work there. They all put their stuff in, and it's an ever evolving and growing thing, right? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to find the good stuff. You're going to find the bad stuff, right? But you move forward. So let's get back to table management, right? So front counter person takes their order, maybe refills their sodas. That's what we do at Benny's, because our soda machine's in the back. Okay. And then we say, sit wherever you would like, right? Now you might be thinking, well, how are you going to know where to bring their food, right? Well, at Benny's, we give them a little stand with a little number on top. So super simple, right? Food gets cooked, we bring it out, okay? Order processing, like I just said, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more on the next slide, okay? At Benny's, we use a POS system. Now, anyone know what a POS system means? This kind of basic stuff, but POS? Point of sale, right? And point of sale is a massive industry right now. Someone give me some names of point of sales companies.
Cube,
Square. You said Cube. There's like Clover. Toast, right? Susie knows that. We use Toast at Benny's. So they're all different point of sale. Aloha, actually, if anyone's an old timer in the business, Aloha was one of the first ones. That's like 40 years old, almost, it seems like. Yeah, and those are all order processing systems, right? And those greatly help with getting customers their food quicker. It is interesting, though. I was in a restaurant yesterday that used just the old ticket system, right? And there's a lot of issues with that. We could talk about that in the next slide, okay? Now, it's important to synchronize between the front of the house and back of the house. Now, what does someone think that means? Synchronizing the front and the back of the house.
To assist with the time management, making sure that the order is getting back to the back of the house in a timely manner, so that the food can get to the front of the house in a timely manner.
Yes. So it's all part of a bigger system, right? Everyone on the same page, everyone working together to get things. We're going to expand on that theme in the next couple slides.
Sorry.
My clicker stopped working. Thank you. Is it still working? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So We're gonna shift gears for a second, then jump back to synchronizing and be on the same page, and then also talking about, sorry, the next slide is gonna be the point of sale. Prep, okay? We just talked about when the customer comes in, they are greeted. We're using the Benny's model, right? They're greeted, they place their order, they sit down, okay? Setting tables. Now, at Benny's, we don't actually formally set a table for someone to have, right? What we do is we have roll-ups, right? Anyone ever experience or know what this is a very industry term, right? What a roll-up is?
The silverware?
Yeah, silverware, right? It's fork and knife, and then you're gonna put a napkin around that, right, and wrap it, okay? Now, at Benny's, we have plates and we have roll-ups all in a certain area. Now, that is part of prep duties, which we're gonna get into a later slide in front of the house, right? And instead of setting tables, that's what the roll-ups are for and the clean plates, right? Okay, now, you wanna have those stocked all the time, right? Why? Because yes, we're a fast casual and there are expectations. Those expectations include not having a formal dining set, but when the people sit down, right? And this is kind of the process that a fast casual will go through, like Benny's, is people will sit down, they'll have their number, right? Then our staff now knows, and our staff in the front always has that counter person. Then they have a backup person that expedites and brings food out, right? And then both of them will clean up. That expediting person will see that someone sat down with their number, and then they will bring them roll-ups and plates. So that is our equivalent at Benny's of setting the table, right? And that is just part of the process, right? And it's part of the timeline. People sit down, their plates get there, and then after that, we'll talk about in a second, maybe their salads or appetizers will get there, which is all kind of synchronizing with the back, right? And then their main will get there. And then the whole time in between, we'll be filling their sodas, or we have a water station. Maybe they'll go get their own water, stuff like that. Maybe they'll go up and leave their seat and go to the bar and get a drink. Because remember, we don't have servers to do all that stuff, right? It's kind of a self-serve, right? So that is our setting of tables. But if you're in a more formal sit down, maybe Nate's on Marsh or something like that, right? It's all going to be there for you. At least I think Nate's is more leaning fine dining, right? So when you sit down, the plate's not going to be there. It's going to be like a bread plate or something like that, right? But then the plate will actually come with the food. The food will be plated, correct? So best practices, right? Like I just said, okay? If you're at the bar, you're gonna, like Benny's has a bar, right? We have a bar room and we have a dining room. I bartended for 15 years, and the first thing that you would do is you would arrange the bar. Now, you put out the napkin holders, you put out your fruit trays, you line everything up. Why would we do that as a bartender, do you think?
Time later?
Save time, labor, expand that, unpack that.
So that if you're in the middle of making a drink, you don't have to go to the back and get more oranges or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute, I have to do all this stuff before I make you a drink.
Exactly. So how does that benefit? Can you kind of explain how that benefited maybe the server or the worker? How's that going to benefit now the customer or customers?
Yeah, so it benefited them, and then it's going to benefit the customer because they don't have to wait as long for their drink.
Yes.
And when they wait long, then they start to tap their foot, and you know how that goes.
No one likes lines, right? I hate seeing, well, lines are always good because that means that there's people there buying your product, right? But then lines, if they're too long and take too long, they're bad.
Yeah.
Right? Because then the customer's waiting, they get annoyed, right? Even though the average time is probably 2 to 4 minutes, how does that feel for a customer? Like,
If I've got my eye on that gin and tonic and I gotta wait an extra 2 minutes because it's gonna feel like an hour.
right? Yeah, and and what's funny is a lot of people, and any of us service people understand this, they'll say we've been waiting for a half an hour, we've been waiting for 45 minutes. And then when you actually do the work and you look at the ticket, they've been waiting for like 6. You know, so it always feels like it's more time than it really is for the customer. Okay, so you want to turn and burn. Now, are there any negatives? Let's say there's a fruit tray that I stick out as a bartender. What's the negative on that side that we have to be very mindful of in the service industry? Juan, right?
Yes, that it doesn't spoil. You want to make sure that it's on ice or some type of mechanism or container to keep it fresh.
Yeah, you're going to follow the health code requirements, right, on making sure everything's fresh. And then, of course, when you stock it, right? You're gonna make sure that it is still good, right? It looks good, it feels good, it smells good. And then of course, which is another class I'd be more than happy to give down the road, is following more the regulations on cutting fresh stuff and then labeling everything, right? You don't want to use things after a certain date. Okay, perfect. So it kind of goes in the same concept. And like I said earlier, best practices, right? So you're going to find out what works best for your business. And then this is huge, organizing the service stations. Okay. At Benny's, we have a few different service stations. We have one at the front behind the front counter where we have plates, we have baskets, we have roll-ups, right? We have a refrigerator with ranch dressings, all the different dressings for the salads, all that kind of stuff with a extra Parmesan cheese is refrigerated. We have a nice little cube box behind the register, also like a bookshelf type thing with to-go boxes, with extra napkins, with they're called clamshells, the to-go boxes that fold in half, right? And then we have a second service station next to the dish bins, the dirty dish bins that have plates, napkins, roll-ups, all that kind of stuff, right? What's the benefit of having two different stations? And this is best practice, of course, right? So you want to have two different stations because if it's busy, slammed, you don't want to run across the whole restaurant to grab something. You also don't want to like clog up the front area, right? If you're having a bunch of staff running back and forth to grab plates or roll up stuff like that. Okay, so best practice and all of that. Okay, tips for efficiency. Now I'm saying pre-setting tables, right? I'm gonna lump that in with my restaurant at least with organizing the service stations. Right? Because I just explained that we don't preset the tables, but you want to make sure that your service station is full of stuff. So like I mentioned earlier, our service stations will have plates, will have roll-ups, extra napkins, spoons, everything like that that is needed to be brought out to match that timeline, right, effectively. Okay. And then using checklists. The checklists are vitally important in the restaurant. This is also going to go to best practices. This is going to be what's best for your space, what's best for your style of food you're serving, and of course, if you're fast casual or you're going to be a fine dining, right? So we have multiple checklists at Benny's where the staff is like, let's take the day shift. And this is pretty notorious for every day shift, whether you're at Benny's or any other restaurant in town. You're going to have a checklist to do before you get out of there, right? That checklist for the day shift, does anyone in here know, usually the day guys usually do what? They prep, right? And that's the biggest gripe of the day guys, right? Is that they always show up and everything's gone from the night before. But that's kind of the best practice of what happens, right? And in restaurants, most of the money is made during the second shift, the night shift, right? So those dudes have to be fully stocked. So like I said at Benny's, we have a big checklist and everyone has to complete that checklist. And what we did is we laminated the checklist and we put it on a freezer right there in the front. So the front counter person checks it off every single day, right? And then at the end of the night or in the morning, the next day, we erase it and then start over again. So there's a checklist for the front of the house for the day shift and the night shift. And like we mentioned earlier, best practices is going to dictate what's best for your business and things are going to change. So here's a small example of our checklist. Roll silverware, restock expo stations, brew iced tea, and of course we label everything. Iced tea is kept in the back. Change out towel, clean stock front register area, wipe down, straighten all tables and chairs. And a lot of this is stocking and a lot of it is busy work, right? Mop dining lounge area under tables. Oh, that's the closing one. But some of those are higher up also on the day shift too. Wipe down and straighten all tables and chairs, right? Why would you want to do something like, why would you want to have something like that on the checklist?
It's a simple task that I think could be easily forgotten. So having it on the checklist serves as a notification, a reminder that, hey, this has to get done.
Exactly. And believe it or not, if you don't have a checklist like this, those simple things will not get done. They just won't. So, like I said, best practices of your restaurant of what works best for you. Also, what I was also getting at with wipe down and straighten all tables and chairs, where it's going to be, that is like a constant thing. That's not like you just check it off once. And then those are things that you express to staff while you're training them, right? And you reemphasize at staff meetings, stuff like that. Okay. Manage lead times in front of house. So let's talk about what a lead time is. Someone in the audience help me. What is a lead time?
It's something, it's how long it takes from order to delivery.
Yes. Now, let's dig deeper. Let's take off some layers of the onion, right? Are there different lead times for different products and different situations?
Yes.
Please give me a scenario.
Pizza.
Okay. Okay. Let's explore that a little bit. Okay, let's give a scenario. You come in with the family and you have kids, and our menu has like wings, it has like fries, it has cheesy sticks. The kids love cheesy sticks, right? It's like it's our dough with cheese mozzarella on top. And then we have our pizzas, we have salads, right? So let's build your order real quick. And then let's talk about the lead times on those.
Okay, let me get an everything pizza with a side of garlic breadsticks. If
Okay.
you have those, 3 drinks and
Salad.
a salad. Yeah.
Salad, awesome. So we have different sizes of salads. You want it for the whole family, maybe you
Yes,
want to get a
yes.
large one. Okay. Okay, we figure out your dressing you want on that. And then your kids are kind of hyper right now, so you want to quiet them down with some French fries, maybe. Okay. So order some French fries. Now we have our whole order there, right? We have our everything pizza, we have cheesy sticks, we have some French fries, and we have some, what do you
Salad.
get?
Salad.
Salad, and then we got, yeah, that's it, right? Big order. But there's like 90 of you. Okay. What comes out first? What should be happening if I am a restaurant professional? What is my logic? And for you, what is the expectation as a customer?
Probably my salad for everybody to start it off.
Okay, right? Because that's culture. That's our culture in America, right? We start with the salad, we start with the appetizers, right? So if you're a customer and everything comes out all at the same time, are you going to kind of be confused or a little worried or maybe upset? Why?
Because you already have this expectation of how you're going to get your food and what food items are going to be presented first. You wouldn't start off with the whole pizza. You want to get the palate ready with the salad and some fries and some cheesy sticks and the drinks.
Right? So our culture in America is to start with the small stuff first, right? And then we sit there and we kind of eat that and we talk. So the whole thing is an experience for building here, correct? Yeah. Now also think about this. If everything comes at the same time, you're gonna culturally eat the salad and the sticks and all that first, then the pizza's gonna get cold, right? So we want everything, you know, and this is also an expectation, right? You want the salad to be cold, right? You want the fries to be hot. You want the cheesy sticks to be hot. Then you want the pizza to be hot, right? So if everything comes out all at once, you might get to the salad later. The salad then becomes warm, right? And then the pizza cold, right? So you want to manage those expectations. So that also is one of those main themes that we've been talking about, is that synchronizing with the front and the back of the house on orders and lead times. I'm going to jump over here because I have a example of a POS system. Most of us in the restaurant industry are familiar with something like this, right? This is a standard Toast POS system. I couldn't find anything that got really deep into it. Let's say you go food, you go nachos. Well, this is a Mexican restaurant, obviously, right? You can go hold, stay, send. You can get even deeper on some POS systems where they say fire first. What does the word fire mean in the restaurant industry?
And out quickly.
Fire? Well, no, fire means cook. Strictly just means cook, right? So fire this, fire that. And then when we start talking about back of house stuff, we'll get into that a little bit deeper, right? On what those terms mean and the implications of those terms. Now, fire first. If some POS systems, and you can customize Toast actually to have a button that says fire first. If you actually push the button fire first, what do you think that means?
This goes to the front of the line for the cook.
For this order, just for this order, when obviously it's like in that kind of situation, right? If we want to jump the line on stuff, which I'm overthinking and thinking ahead right now, because that's what I do. But that'd be like an emergency situation. And in that situation, it's best practice, but you'd have the server actually talk to and say, hey, look, we messed up on this order, we need it fired immediately, right? But in a normal situation, when a ticket prints up and there's a fire first button, what do we think that means? That there was a conversation with the customer and the server on what they want first, right? Now, some restaurants that I've been at or worked at or seen, they actually have, that's their best practice, is to actually identify what they want first with fire first. At Benny's and most restaurants, there's a culture and a best practices that has just been happening where we know salads always come out first, appetizers, fried foods, cheesy sticks always comes out first, and pizza is last, right? So that, like, again, that's going to be what you're going to determine with management, ownership, and your employees on what the best practice for your restaurant is.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said fire first means cook first, but what if something takes a super long time and let's say it's a pot roast, fire first, but the salad's ready first?
So that's an excellent question. And that's where this gets really confusing, right?
Yeah.
Let's take the extreme example. I will jump to Benny's in a second and I'll give you an example there. But let's say you own an Italian restaurant, and what is notorious for taking forever? Risotto, right? Risotto is going to take like 40 minutes to cook. And a lot of places will actually pre-cook risotto like halfway, and then cool it, and then warm it up again and like finish it, right? But if you're at a place that makes it from scratch all the time, right? Yes, that's going to be part of best practice, where they know if they see a risotto, they're going to start that immediately before they even get anything else out before that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like best practice stuff on that. And that's what the kitchen's responsibility is. In this scenario, I'm talking about like a customer will say, you know what, actually, and we get this, we want everything out at once, right? It's just like such mayhem. There's kids everywhere. They probably only have like a 15-minute window to settle everyone down. Everything at once, and then it's like all on the table, and they all just like smorgasbord it, right? So, getting lost here on my thought on where to go. Okay, so we were talking about definition of lead times. So are we all kind of clear on what a lead time is, and that's going to be an ever-changing thing, right? Now, strategies for managing lead times using the POS system. We just actually thoroughly went over that, right? Now, if you don't use a POS system and you want to manage your lead times, if you're the front trying to talk to the back, you simply just write it on your ticket, right? Like fire first or hold until this time. And we've actually had this also at the restaurant where a big party will come in and they're still waiting on people, right? So they'll put the order in and then we'll say hold until etc. or put these items out first and hold this for later, right? We do get that. So everything's going to be an ever changing, and I'm using this phrase like crazy, but best practice, because you're going to use the best practice for your organization. Okay. And then of course, managing customer expectations. Now, we just talked about a scenario where it was customer forward, right? The customer was kind of dictating, like, we want this first, we want the salad, or we want, whatever. At Benny's, the pizzas usually take, on a good day, when it's mildly busy, about a half an hour. They're deep dish. They take about 18 to 20 minutes to actually cook in the oven, because you're baking a cake essentially, right? About an inch thick. If there's more wet toppings on there, like veggies, it takes a little bit longer because you have to burn off some of the moisture, so it's not just a wet mess, right? So what we do, and actually we have on a sign out front that says, what is it, Susie? It says quality takes time or something like that. Each pizza, Susie is actually a business partner of mine. So just if I refer to her on things that we are discussing or that I'm discussing, she knows some of those things too. Quality takes time. Our pizzas take, 25 to 30 minutes, right? Now that's just standard. That's on the wall. That's on our menus. Does that mean that people read those?
No.
Absolutely not, right? And Susie will get this too, because she was in higher education for about 30+ years. Read the syllabus, right? Do the students read the syllabus? They're notorious for not reading the syllabus, right? Okay, so we have to explain these things to customers. And this is one of the biggest things that it's always a challenge for ownership and management, is to remind the front counter person to tell people these things. Because once you, like, people don't mind waiting as long as you tell them. But if they go to the table and sit there and like, they start getting upset because they, these are like those like, oh, I'm being abandoned here, right? They get those childhood issues or whatever comes out for waiting for a pizza, right? I am joking, but kind of not. But emotions do come up, right? You start to think that they're not valued, they're not happy, they're never going to come here again. But that all could have been solved with the front counter person or the server saying, hey, this takes this much time. Now, on top of that, if it's a slam busy night, if you've never been in the restaurant industry, you most likely don't understand that things are going to take longer when it's busier in a restaurant, right? Not everybody correlates that and can put that together in their mind. So you have to tell people those things, okay? Also part of that managing customer expectations is that timeline that I discussed earlier, right? It starts with Benny's greeting them, telling them we're fast casual, taking their order, telling them how long it's going to take. And then that timeline of our actions of setting the table or bringing the plates out to them, bringing the salads out to them, and then actually each time saying, and this is a great technique when you bring the plates out, hey, pizza's in a few minutes, right? Or your salad's coming right up. So what is that doing? That's you're checking in with that customer and you're giving them a timeline of what's happening. So then they don't feel forgotten and they don't feel like they're just, a piece of meat or something, right? Like you're there checking in on them. And I'm joking about that, but I'm also being serious, right? It's a true thing. People want to feel that they're in the conversation and that they're loved and they're appreciated, right? So this is the way to do that, okay? And you're checking in with them each time. When the salad comes, you say, or the salad and the breadsticks come, say, here, guys, pizza's gonna be about 10 more minutes. And then everything works perfect and everyone's happy, right? It's also an opportunity to talk to them, to, I'll go around and touch tables, and touching tables is a term usually for restaurant owners and managers where you're going to tables and you're just talking to people, right? You're getting to know them a little bit more. And so that's also a technique on when their salad comes or appetizers come, you go there, you talk to them, you see where they're from, you're killing time, but you're also getting to know the customer and making them feel safe and happy, okay? And that doesn't mean that only owners touch tables. I highly encourage my employees and managers to go talk to customers too. Okay.
Can I share something?
Please.
So, I don't have experience in the restaurant industry working, but obviously I've been to restaurants and can share more about myself afterwards. But something that bugs me, and I don't know if it's just me, but when I start eating and then the waiter comes back and says, "Is everything okay?" I think that's a cultural expectation, but I'm like, I'm eating, please leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
It's when you're taking the bite that they show up.
Yes,
Right?
yes, you just put it in your mouth. How is everything? Go away, please.
And that is a culture expectation, and that's also like a best practices, probably, to
Got
be
it.
honest,
Okay,
of a
so that's
restaurant.
just me.
No, I mean, I think the good servers, the people who've been there for years, and the lifers, but the people who make a lot of money on serving, because you can make 6 figures easily doing this kind of work at that level, is you watch your tables. If I've been in this business for so long, you can tell when someone wants something, right? If people are engaged in conversation, they're having a great time, and you walk past them, what are you going to do if you're that server that knows the game? You're just going to walk past them. You're going to let them continue to have their good time, right?
Right.
Now, if you're there and they're looking around or they're trying to catch your attention, and this is basic stuff, right? But some people don't always get this basic stuff, right? Like certain customers are going to tell you when they want your help, right? Okay. So, but very good point, right? So
Yeah, you were talking about touching tables, so I thought I'd bring it up.
yeah.
You're like, "Can you touch my table, please?"
Yeah, I mean, I'll share a fun little story. I did wedding photography for years in this area, and it's like a faux pas to take photos during dinner. You don't take photos of people eating during
Oh,
dinner.
yeah.
It's the same kind of thing, right? So touching tables, yeah, definitely you touch tables, I think, after the food's been eaten, and maybe it's just there and they're still talking. That's a perfect time though to come up, like I would come up and say, hey, how was everything after they're done eating? Then offer them a box or something like that to start the process of them leaving, right? Which I think we both want. And that sounds weird, but we both do want to wrap things up and have closure for the restaurant, right? For them, so they can go home, they can close their experience. For us at the restaurant, so we could turn the table and get another customer in there. Okay. All right. Techniques, prioritize and order. We kind of went all into this, and I'm taking a little too much time on this. So I'm going to move to the next slide. Synchronizing fire times with front of house operations. Coordination between servers and kitchen. Now, we did touch on this a little bit, right? Now, a standard fire time is just going to come up. Like, let's say at Benny's, we have our toast system. Customer comes up, they put in the order in the back, the printer prints it up, right? Now, if there's no special requests from the front of the house, the kitchen will just fire it in order of our best practices, right? Let's say there's a Caesar salad that's going to go out first. If there's wings, they're going to fire the wings because the wings take 7 minutes. They're going to fire those wings first. This is the conversation for the back of the house operations. We're going to get into a second. But if it goes in order, it goes in order, right? Now, it really gets important if there's special dietary restrictions, right? Or there's a special on the order, right? Now, for the most part, most POS systems, let's see if this gives us a little insight into it. No, it doesn't. Up here on ours, you have a bunch of buttons that you can, like dining's gonna be like to go for here, et cetera. We talked about this down here. Open item is gonna be like if there's an off menu item, we as owners and managers don't like that because it like isn't priced properly usually if you leave it up to a employee to like guess at what something's going to cost. It's not usually good. But a lot of times, like let's say you press like poke bowl, there will be a whole bunch of items underneath it where you can add and subtract, right? Like there's an add button where you can add aioli or add green onions or whatever it is, right? Or subtract. Then a lot of times, when we have this too, where there's a special request button. And under that special request button is where you're communicating with the kitchen on what a customer might want. Now, this is, and I tell the kitchen in the front of the house staff, that what I just explained, like where it's not dietary, it's just kind of customer preference, that's fine. But when you get to a dietary issue, that's a big deal, right? So you're going to put that in there under the special request as the front counter person. Let's say they're lactose intolerant or they're celiac. That's a deeper discussion. I don't want to get into that.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, well, that's just like, yeah, we have, yeah, deep discussion on celiac because that's a serious thing. I'm lactose intolerant, right? I own a pizza place, lactose intolerant, weird. I know it happens. Let's say no cheese. They put no cheese on there. But what we tell the front of the house staff on any dietary issues, it's super important. Put it on paper, meaning put it in the POS system. But then actually, once you put that order in and it prints up, what should you do? You directly get that cook's attention and you say, hey, ticket 23, dietary restriction, please be very mindful. What you want to get, if you're the front counter person telling the kitchen staff that, you want to hear the word heard, right? Like, I hear you, I understand that, right? So that's the kind of like synchronizing you need to get with the kitchen. Also synchronizing with the kitchen is going to be, and that's a digital tracking system. We don't use kitchen displays because we use our just ticket printer, and that's best practice for us. Is checking on orders, right? Sometimes the kitchen staff does forget, or they're busy back there, and they have their own system in the back as far as in where, you know, if they have fried food, the tickets go in a certain spot, and then they fire them, then they move it over to the next spot for pizzas, right? They have their own system back there. Sometimes something doesn't get put out, right? So the order goes wrong. And so the front of the house will have to will have to work with the kitchen and say, hey guys, ticket 42, I had some wings, you know where those are? And they'll say, oh shoot, we forgot those, let's fire them right now. Or they're in the fryer, right? We had a couple orders before that, and we have a small fryer at Benny's. So, you know, if we have a couple orders of wings, it might clog up for a few minutes, right? So just synchronizing with the kitchen. Also, a lot of the front of the house, unfortunately, they make mistakes too. So sometimes they'll bring the wrong pizza to the wrong table. When that happens, you have to refire both pizzas, right? The table that got their pizza given away, and the table that started eating the wrong pizza, they need the right pizza, right? So that's just coordination. And then of course, management will get involved. We'll see what's going on. We'll talk to people, see what they want, see what they don't want, and then go from there, okay? But that takes ongoing discussion between the front and the back of the house. Real quick on the kitchen display screens, just to kind of explain that, most POS systems have these. If you go into Taco Bell or somewhere, you can see those just right there. They're just TVs essentially turned vertical, right? It's a touchscreen type system. The reason why we don't like it at the front back of the house doesn't like it at Benny's, and I don't like it either, is because you usually tap it to clear it. And if our system was set like that from the beginning, maybe it would work that way. But what happens is if you don't tap and clear it and you just put it out, which happens during busy times, it just sits there. And then you're like, oh shoot, did I make that or not? Right? Our system is a ticket that gets put onto a piece of metal, like a metal rod, you know, you spike it. And then so once it's spiked, you know it's been put out. Right? So, and then kind of a double for our system and how we synchronize also is front of the house will print up a nice little sticker. And that sticker we put on the to-go boxes, stuff like that, saying what the order is. And that sticker is the same as the ticket in the back. And so when the front of the house, they like line all the tickets up on the food service shelf. And then as the food comes out and they deliver it, let's say it's a big order and it's like salads, cheesy sticks, pizzas. As they bring out the salads, they'll mark off salads with a Sharpie. And then when they bring out the pizza, the last order, or the tiramisu, or whatever the last bit of the order is, they take it and they stick it on the ticket from the kitchen, and then they spike it. So then that's the front of the house and the back of the house both saying that this order is complete and it's done, and we spike it, right? Then another benefit of that also is if there's a misorder or a confusion on an order, or maybe something was put in from the front of the house wrong, we just actually look back at that ticket and look at it and say, you know, that often sparks an argument between the front and the back of the house. Like, you did it wrong, or no, you did it wrong, but it gets resolved. And that's just a way to be like, oh shoot, sorry, I messed up, or oh, I messed up, or no one messed up and the customer's crazy. That never happens, right? Okay, so, and like I said, best practices. Okay. Spending a lot of time in front of the house. We'll go through this really quick. So multitasking in the front of the house, you prioritize, delegate responsibilities. Yes, the easiest thing for this with our kind of system, our fast casual system, is we have usually on a busy night, we have 2 front counter people. Those 2 front counter people will one will be designated to take orders and be customer facing. The next one will be expo or expediting. Anyone know what that term means?
Expedite?
Yeah.
So we get out fast, quickly.
Yeah, so in the restaurant industry, the expediter is the person who's going to be there, the first contact with the kitchen, who when the food comes out from the back of the house, they'll match it up with the ticket number, and then go run it to the table. Yeah, okay. So that's how we run it. We have an expediter and a cashier. But then sometimes, you know, it slows down, and both those people are also in charge of bussing the restaurant and clearing the restaurant and turning tables, right? So there's a lot of time management and a lot of multitasking that happens at the front on them both deciding who's gonna, you know, if there's a slow period to go run and clean a table and turn it, stuff like that. Okay, I won't spend too much time on that. The example I have here of handling multiple tables, managing high volume, I just gave you that example of managing high volume on when you can sneak away and actually turn tables and stuff like that. Handling multiple tables would be more of like a server aspect, right? if you actually have a server at a table, you're jumping around. And this goes back to our story that we just talked about on how you sometimes don't like servers to interrupt when you have that fork of salad in your mouth. That's part of multitasking, and I would actually use the word triage, right? On being like, that table's fine, I'm gonna concentrate on this table, right? And then it's a constant game of doing that through the entire night. And like I said, the more experienced you are and the more just in the game you are, and then of course, the more you care about what you're doing, you're gonna be an expert at doing that, right? Okay. Multitasking also, and this isn't really that huge in America. It's been in Europe for years and years and years. I slowly start seeing it in America, is mobile POS systems, where the server's actually coming up with like a tablet or something and taking the order right there in front of you, right? Let's say, I already explained how Benny's works, so that's kind of off the table for that, right? Customer comes to the front counter, orders, that's it. You see these hybrid fast casual restaurants where the server will come to your table, do that, and then kind of disappear, right? That's all you see him is taking the order. So that's essentially having the cashier come to your table, but then other people run the food. So it's a hybrid type system. Those are super cool. Really efficient. You're also seeing, I didn't put on here, QR codes, right? And that was really big during COVID, right? When we didn't actually put actual menus out. And what is a QR code for menus? Susie, have you seen those?
Yeah, it's that funny looking thing with the little black and white stuff.
Yes. And what do you do with it?
Well, you get your phone and you whack it.
Right, you turn on your camera. If you have an iPhone,
Whack
yeah, you whack it. Turn on your camera and it pops up a little link and you press the link and then it sends you to the menu, right? That's slowly going away. I don't think people really like that, do they? I don't really like it. I know that the older generation really doesn't like it, and I guess I'm below that, but I still don't like it. Maybe the Gen Z is out there now. Maybe they love it. I don't know, but anyway, that's also a multitasking thing for restaurants. Okay, let's get into back of house for the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, so let's talk about the responsibilities of the back of the house, BOH. Food prep, cooking, and order fulfillment. So just like the front of the house, right? This prepping, cutting veggies, right? If you've got those risottos you're half cooking, or cooking chickens that take a long time, half cooking chickens or 3/4 cooking chickens. At Benny's, we have an awesome product, the pork belly. So we will cook pork belly in advance, let that cool, then chop it up, or we'll make meatballs, right? Bag them for later. So food prep is very important in a kitchen. An example of Benny's, I was just giving you a few, I'll give you a few more. Our toppings are set up in a, let's see if I actually have a image, something like this, right? Where the toppings are there. Now, what's the benefit of having a nice refrigerator like this with a topping set out like that?
Keeps it good.
Okay, so you're like from the whole health safety, right? It's keeping it cold.
Visually attractive.
Okay, looks good, right? What else?
Easy to quickly figure out where to find things.
Yeah, so let's give an example of Benny's. We have a setup just like this actually with a cutting board like service area. So in our pizzas our doughs are already in the pan, they're risen in the pan. So what we do is we get a dough out from the dough boxes where the doughs are rising. We cheese it, right? We measure the cheese, we cheese it, and then we bring it over to this station. Okay, then the tickets are right here, right in front of you. So you'll look at one, you'll say, okay, I got a baby. And what also happens, I didn't explain this, and what happens in most kitchens, when it prints out, there'll be the expediter in the back of the house who's bringing the food to the window that meets the expediter for the front of the house, right? That person will call out the order. Now, usually calling out the order, you're not expected to remember that, but it's in your mind of what's coming up next, right? So order will come up, expediter will yell out, the kitchen expediter will yell out, or back of the house expediter, large Caesar salad, large cheesy sticks, and a classic pepperoni pizza. Cool. That gets put onto the ticket line, but that's in the psyche of maybe one of the sous chefs or one of the cooks to go grab extra doughs to put out to be ready to cheese. That makes sense? Okay. So when they get to the line, they cheese it. It's a pepperoni pizza. They get into the pepperoni bin and they put pepperoni on, and then they put it in the table right behind them, which is in front of the ovens. And then the actual oven cook puts it in the oven and times it. Okay. Now, what's important about prep in this whole situation is that we have it set up with usually one of each. Like pepperoni is a high use item. So we have 2 bins of pepperoni, 2 big bins of pepperoni, right? Because we go through it a lot. Now, we don't have it set up like this underneath. We have doors like this that just open. And underneath there, we have our high volume items that are already chopped up and prepped for the day before. Because when it's super busy on the line, let's say you run out of mushrooms, right? You have another cut thing of mushrooms underneath. Sometimes you have 2, sometimes you have 3, right? Then all of those items, including the ones on the top when you close and you put saran wrap on top, all of them are dated. So you know what's good and what's not good. At our restaurant, we go through items like nothing ever goes to waste. We use it so much, right? And that's also a very important part of prep, is knowing how much to prep and when to prep it. Because if you're prepping too much at a restaurant and you're just not moving that item, you want to know what's selling and what's not selling. If you're prepping stuff and you have to throw it away, like let's say mushrooms, once you cut into a mushroom, you're exposing air to the inside where it's going to rot and go bad a lot quicker than just not being cut, right? So in the refrigerator not being cut, you have probably an extra day or 2. Once you cut them, you got to use them within that day or 2. Does that make sense? So it's either 4 days or 2 days on those products. So
You might call it shelf life in manufacturing.
yes, exactly. Perfect. Okay, so that's the importance of prep. And that goes in our restaurant from everything from making doughs, right? We always have a 3-day stock of dough. It's called bulk fermenting in the pizza world, right? That allows the dough to rise better and to taste better. That's a whole nother lecture we can give. To mushrooms, to pepperoni, to meat. Then also you have to be mindful of how to store things, right? All of our meats we have 2 of these guys. All of our meats are on one side and all the veggies are on the other side. That's going to avoid any cross-contamination. That's going to avoid any kind of, it's going to just help with requests of maybe vegans or vegetarians, right? So you can guarantee them there's no cross-contamination. Okay. Cooking, right? The back obviously is responsible for cooking, okay? And order fulfillment. Cooking and order fulfillment, of course, kind of what we talked about for the last 10 minutes is a blending, right? I don't want to go too far into it, but just like the front has time management responsibilities, the back does too. So they're gonna know that pizzas take 20 minutes, right? So let's say you take a GDB, which is a pizza with everything. Those usually take about 25 minutes because it's got all the meats, it's got veggies, it's very heavy and dense, and you want to burn off a lot of that moisture that comes from like the mushrooms and the bell peppers and all that stuff that's very wet, right? And you want to ensure that it rises properly and it's not soggy. So it takes a little bit longer, 25 minutes. Throw in that pizza, okay? Then in between throwing in that pizza, what do? You're going to follow that whole expectation or best practices that you have. If that ticket, it doesn't have any special requests, there's the salad and the cheesy sticks and wings. You're going to start the wings first because they're 7 minutes. So pizza, then the wings, and then you're going to put that salad together because it's going to take 45 seconds. Put the salad out, right? Then, or, if there's cheesy sticks, when you put the pizza in. So then it all kind of comes out at the right time, okay? In order like we discussed. That doesn't always happen the way we want it to happen. On super busy nights, yes, sometimes everything comes out at once, which is not best practice. And that's when you have to go talk to the customers and apologize to them for that, right? But also that's takes clear and concise communication from the back of the house. Like, guys, we're slammed right now. Some of this, we're 15, 20 minutes behind. Then when communication happens like that to the front of the house, then the front of the house can then tell customers, then they're setting that expectation, right? Setting those boundaries, okay? It's a lot more complex than that. And when I first got this lecture to give and building this slide deck. This is the kind of stuff that takes people years and years and years to master. So a lecture like this is fun to talk about. It's all academic, but it takes years to do this. And really the only way to convey something like this is to actually be showing someone and actually throwing them into the fire with you, right? To do it with you and to see how it works. Yeah. Back of the house kitchen work is some of the hardest work out there, just like nonstop. Yeah, sure, underwater welding, all that stuff, that, you know, construction work, I get it. But in the kitchen, where if it's like 100 degrees in there and they're just like working 8-hour shifts, and right, it's a very hard job.
Dishes, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you're able to multitask in that scenario, I think you can go and take the world over. I'm a strong proponent of hiring people outside of the restaurant industry who've worked in the restaurant industry, right? We talked about ingredient preparation and setup, why that's important. Batch cooking, so tips for efficiency, right? An example for us for batch cooking, right, doing things large, is stuff that you can get away with batch cooking. Can I get away with batch cooking pizzas, then hoping that people come in and order pepperoni pizzas? No, that doesn't work, right? Because someone's gonna, like, the expectation of that pizza is that it's out of the oven fresh right then, right? Now, you go and you buy meatballs. Has anyone here ever made meatballs? Right? It's not anything you make necessarily at the time of, right? It's a long process, okay? Now, if you, I guess, want to make on-call meatballs, you would still need to do the prep work, right? You'd still need to have all the meats mixed together and the eggs and all that stuff mixed together. Then you cook it, right? But an example of Benny's is we'll make, every week, we make probably 150 meatballs. Sometimes we do that twice because we move through constantly, right? So when you do the batch stuff like that, then we warm them up in our convection oven, right? Is very important. Inventory management. That is just prep at the stage before you're actually cutting into the food product, right? Or batching the food product. Does that make sense? Right? You want to make sure that that inventory is there to be able to prep and to be successful for the restaurant. Right now, we're having issues with sourcing good arugula. We've had this issue since day one. I think everyone's having this issue. We get arugula that lasts like 2 days and then it turns yellow. As a customer, you don't want yellow arugula, do you? So it's a constant thing of like returning and getting credit to the supplier and being like, can we get arugula that doesn't go bad in 2 days? Because we can't constantly be doing this, right? So that's an inventory thing that you want to get down. On the positive side, we use a company called Stanislaus 7-Eleven for our base for our pizza sauce. We have no problem getting those, right? So we'll order 6 cases of that, of 6 packs. They're called number 10 cans in the restaurant business. There's the big giant industrial cans, right? And we always have plenty of those, and it works great. So when we make sauce, all those number 10 cans are already there. We open them up, we serve them. It's great, right? So those are 2 extreme examples of something easy to get that is shelf stable, that will last us for months and months and months, to one that is going bad in 2 days, where we have to bug the supplier and get credit back for that product, right? Now, when we have to do that, it's going to affect everything along the line, right? And even in the front of the house, right? Because we can't be putting out yellow arugula, and that's a waste. And then we have to tell the customer, after they've already put in the order with their expectation of getting an arugula salad, saying, oh, sorry, the arugula is bad. Or the kitchen didn't tell us the arugula is out, which the kitchen didn't even find out until they got into it, right? So, okay. We went over the visual example of the prep layout and organizational tips. We also have this for our fried foods too. We have a countertop freezer. It's super cool. Where we have like our French fries and our wings. We order pre-cooked wings. That's just you have to do that. Because if anyone's ever made chicken wings from scratch, it's like a good 15-minute fry at least. You have to fry those things forever, right? And so we have like setups just like that for the frozen food too.
But the meatballs are made from scratch.
Meatballs are made from scratch every week. Yep, we use I'll give you two little insights. We use our famous spicy pork sausage,
Mm.
and then we use ground beef. So, and then we use other ingredients, obviously. But yeah, no, they're made fresh from scratch every week. Okay, mastering cook times at the back of house. And I will wrap up in a few minutes. I know we're a few minutes long right now. I apologize, guys. Fire times, right? We just, oh, do we?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
You have so much
Uh-oh,
time.
be careful. Managing fire times. We talked about that, right? Knowing when to actually put things in, when to hold things off. I jump in the kitchen all the time, right? When it gets busy, I'm back there. And it's funny because I started the business and trained all those dudes. And then I'm more centered on customer service, right? Because I believe that our food is down. It's great. We need to work on and make sure the customer experience is the best it can be at the front of the house, right? I'll jump back there and I'll pull up a ticket and I'll try to like be like, yeah, I'm gonna get in here and kill it with these guys. And I'll start making stuff. They'll be like, no, hold off. Like, we're gonna fire that in like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. Because they don't want it to come out. If things come out too soon, it messes up their order that they want, right? Because they have the back of the house has the expectation to go along with our best practice and the cultural norms to make sure the food comes out at the right time. Okay. We have, if you go in the back, we have a army of little Amazon timers, and we have to buy new timers all the time because they fall and they break or they just get old. But we have these just little kitchen timers that are a little minute an hour, right? And so when when an individual pizza goes in, or we put 3 or 4 pizzas at the same time, time it. We time it for like 12 minutes for the first round, 7 minutes for the second round, right? So, and the back of the house staff knows where to set those timers on where the pizzas are in the oven, okay? There's also timers next to the fryer. And then we have a little printout in case people forget above the fryer that says like French fries, 2 minutes, Mojo potatoes, 2 minutes, wings, 7 minutes. What else do we have? Corn dog bites, 3 minutes, chicken nuggets, 5 minutes, right? So we have all that there. Then we have 2 timers there because we have 2 fry baskets, okay? A left and a right. So that's how we manage our actual cooking, right? And that goes for rewarming the meatballs. It goes for toasting our garlic bread that we have, or the bread for the sandwiches. We have all of that, right? With our convection oven, with our other ovens, okay? So that's how they in the back manage their time. Of course, for salad, stuff like that, you don't need that, correct? Okay. Managing, prioritizing, we discussed all of that. Staggering cooking times, we talked about that. And like I said, this is such like a complex and deep subject that this doesn't really convey what it's like in the back. And you have to take that experienced person that's been there forever on knowing what goes first, knowing that this oven is warmer than this oven, so we're going to stick something here or there. Like we have double stack, beautiful double stack Blodgett ovens, right? The big expensive ones. To the traditional ones you make this pizza in, and they know where the hot spots are in the oven. They know which oven, you know, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 3 big ovens, and each oven bay has a number. So they'll know which is warmer, where the warm spots are, where to start a pizza, where to finish a pizza, right? And that just takes time and learning all that. And what's really cool is our kitchen, when we get a new staff member, we back there, they're training that person all of that. So it takes them a few weeks, maybe a month, and they start to understand, okay, I need this guy a little crispy on the bottom. I'm going to put him on the back right, because that's where the hot spot is, right? Okay. Multitasking the back of the house, just kind of through our discussion, we've been talking about this, managing multiple orders. This is a good actually picture right here. This is roughly kind of what our stations look like. Our trays back here our raw goods are sat in, and there's an actual door. But up here's a good example because we do have a shelves just like this back here. And on the shelves up here, that we have a little ticket thing, and the tickets are going to sit here. And like I said earlier, I don't know if you guys caught it. If an order has fried food or salads, it's going to go on one side, right? We have our 2 different refrigerators. Remember I said one's for veggies and then one's going to be for meats, right? We also have two separate ticket holders, right? So anything with salads and fried, we put up here. That makes sense, right? Because the salads is right in front of here, the fried food's all down here, right? So it's on this side. The fryer sits right over here. So everything's kind of spatially set up so it works great and flows easy for the kitchen, right? And then when they fry the food or put a salad out, they move the ticket over to the other side if they have a pizza on the other side. If it's just a salad and some wings, right? They move it over to the expedite side. And then once the food goes out, they smash it down. So it goes like make over to the expedite side when the food goes out. They coordinate. Usually the ticket is with the food. And then the front of the house will match it with their ticket. If the order's over, then they'll spike it. That makes sense? Yeah. So you kind of have to be there to see it, but it's a best practice that it's different for every single restaurant. And it's developed with the ownership and the management and the back of the house and the front of the house. Okay. So it's very unique. Station efficiency, just how you set everything up. Multiple orders, kind of explain that. Sometimes on a Friday night, Fridays are our busy nights, this whole thing is just jammed. This whole thing is just jammed. And on top of the to-go orders, the phone call orders or the online orders and the people in eating at the bar or people eating in the dining room, we have DoorDash, we have Uber Eats,
Oh, yeah.
we have Grubhub. Those are all integrated into our POS system, which is awesome. So when someone orders on DoorDash, in the old way, there used to be we still have the tablets. In the old way, there'd be a tablet, and then we'd have to write it down and give it to the kitchen. Now, luckily, they're integrating with the POS systems. So it just goes right into the system and then pops up like they ordered it through our system online, right? Yes.
So I have observed in kitchens or restaurants that the expectations of the in-person customer get thrown off a bit by DoorDash orders. Not always, but from time to time, let's say I go into a restaurant and I don't see a line, but I also don't see the lineup of tickets from DoorDash in the kitchen. And so, have you found a best way to communicate to in-person customers, like the fact that we actually have a lot going on and it's not going to be instant?
Yeah. We try to set that expectation at the beginning regardless because of the time of the pizza. If it is, I have not actually seen like a slow dead day, like no one's in the restaurant, but then we have like 50 DoorDash orders. I haven't seen that yet, but you have, so it happens, right?
Somebody else's restaurant, yeah.
Yeah. It's just clear communication. So and it all starts, well, everybody knows at that point, right? Because the front of the house is going to see those tickets coming up on their side too, at least in our system. So then the back of the house. So it's just proper communication. And what happens a lot is customers will actually ask, how long is this going to take? And then the front of the house person will ask the back of the house person, like, are we behind? How long do you think this pizza is going to take, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the perfect world, right? That I want to see. That doesn't always happen, right? So, but to get back to your question, we operate everything on kind of like when it comes in. And that's how the back of the house, that's kind of the best practice is like, okay, an order came up, we put it up, order came up, we put it up, right? It is frustrating with those services because they have crazy expectations for us to get food out immediately. So to go back to what you're saying, that does put pressure on the vendor, the restaurant owners to put that order out first. But I mean, you can set times, right? So we can tell DoorDash 30 to 45 minutes. And if you pay attention and you pull up your DoorDash app right now, you'll see there'll be actual times, right? And those do fluctuate and those do change. And not all of them, but I think DoorDash has like a we're behind button. It's like an actual on the tablet that's really convenient. Like we're running behind, right? And then that is supposed to tell the customers. I don't know what the customers actually see in those instances. I know that there's a lot of miscommunication because Grubhub is going to want to save face on their end and put blame on us. And you know.
I've heard about it being difficult to work with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is something I think that's extremely valuable. It's very helpful for businesses like ours, especially in the pizza business. We're not gonna, we decided this from the very beginning, we're not gonna deliver pizza. There's just so much, you have to pay gas, you have to get extra insurance, you have to have extra staff delivering that pizza, where there's like, those days are going away, right? The whole Domino's 30-minute promise, you know, Woodstock's doing free delivery. I don't know if anyone's a slow local. Woodstock still was one of the big ones back in the day. They used to do free delivery. Everyone used to do free delivery, right? And now it's not free anymore. If you look into the small print, right? There's a delivery free even for the in-house. But for us, it was just going to be too much effort, and the labor costs would be too much. So it's easier to outsource to one of those companies, right? So that's the plight of the small business, and kind of something that if we want to tap into those thousands of customers locally, we have to do something like that. So yeah, but then I guess the last thing on that, and which is a frustration for us, is to go back, is that even when we do set the time, sometimes like the drivers will just show up and wait. So they'll show up and wait and like some of them are very aggressive, like, hey, is it done yet? 3 or 4 minutes later, hey, is it done yet? And we just simply say, hey guys, it's, you know, we'll check with the kitchen. We always do. The kitchen tells us 5, 7, 10 minutes, and then they just have to wait.
Right.
Yeah. So in the perfect world, obviously, if you come in, I would love to, you know, jump you to the front, but sometimes, you know,
It is what it is.
it is what it is, right?
Mhm.
So, okay. Yeah. Automated timers. We've discussed all of this stuff already, right? Just through our normal discussion. Okay, so we're nearing the end, right? So let's recap the front of the house and back of the house, right? So let's go over front of the house first, right? You're going to want to have whatever system you're running. So let's say we're running our fast casual, right? You're going to have that front of counter person who also acts as a host and also explaining the menu to someone, right? So they're a server, they're a host, they're an expediter, they're a busser, they're everything all in once at the front counter vendors, right? So you're going to set expectations with your customers. You're going to let them know how we run the operation if they've never been in before. One of my first things to say after I greet people in the front is, have you been in before? If they say yes, we say, okay, great, then you know how we do it. They say yes, we're good. If they don't, we explain the whole system to them, right? And you have to do that with people because you're setting expectations and boundaries, right? So then if they know how it works and they agree to come in and get pizza with us, then they really can't get mad at us, right? Well, of course, they can do whatever they want, and they do. But you know what I'm saying, right? So there's expectations and boundaries. Also, we want to do best practices in the front of the house of prepping, right? We want to prep for, so at Benny's, the prep work during the day is going to be obviously opening up the shop, turning on the open sign, putting our slice of the day signs out, you know, all the stuff in the front so people will see the business. And then it starts, besides the actual interacting with customers, you want to make sure that you're following that checklist, right? That you have your opening day checklist, and that checklist is going to include making sure everything's wiped down, because at night people do sometimes forget to wipe down tables. You spot clean the floors, any kind of big things. You want to make that customer experience the best possible. You prep everything. You're prepping the ranches, the Italian dressings. You're prepping your rolls, your silverware rolls. You're making sure that plates are out, that all the bags are stocked, the to-go bags, all the napkins, all of that cool stuff. You're coordinating with the kitchen. Maybe one of the ovens went down in the morning and it isn't heating properly. You're talking to them. You're figuring out what's happening. You're talking to the bartender. You're synchronizing the entire restaurant, right, in the front of the house. When customers come, you're setting expectations for them. You're making it the best experience they can have. If it gets busy, you're coordinating with if you're the front counter person, you have an expediter, you're coordinating with them on what orders are going to go out first, what orders look like, right? You're talking to the back of the house, you're coordinating with them if it's busy or not. Okay. Back of the house, you're making sure during that slow time, you're prepping, getting everything set for the busy night shift, right? But you're also making orders in the back. You're coordinating with the front of the house. Maybe they know something you don't, right? Or there's a big party coming in. That's actually a good point I haven't talked about. If, let's say a manager or an owner or even the front counter will take a phone call and they'll say, oh my gosh, 20 people are coming in right now, right? They'll tell the kitchen, let them know 20 people are coming in. If we can pre-order in advance, we like to do that and have them people pay for food in advance. It guarantees they're going to come in. We tell the kitchen that. We're also working along with the bartender, right? 20 people are coming in, or it's slow. Can you help me? It's very, it's a common occurrence for the bartender, if he's slow or she's slow, to come help the front of the house expedite or clean tables, turn over tables, right? That happens often, and that's highly encouraged as part of the job. Also, we've seen the front of the house help clean up the bar area when it gets really busy, right? So it's a team play. The back of the house is paying attention to special orders and requests from the front of the house. The back of the house is prioritizing their fire times. They're cooking things at the right time. And the back of the house is ensuring, and I always tell the back of the house this, don't put out food that you wouldn't want to get yourself, right? So they're making sure that the food looks good. They're making sure it's cooked properly, it's cut properly. We're following best practices on how the ownership and the management want the food to look as it leaves the back of the house. And then, of course, everyone hopefully works together and are great friends and have good working relationships, which is easier said than done, right? So that's a lot of information. I can't emphasize enough that this is a highly professional workforce, right? The restaurant industry, it's often looked down upon by, you know, finance people or whatever, or society. There's many careers to be had, and millions of people around the world, hundreds of millions of people around the world are in the restaurant industry, and they're hardworking, responsible, and professional people, right? That work extremely hard, and they are the best multitaskers I've ever seen as restaurant people, right? So, yeah, always make sure to tip. But yeah, they're very hardworking people, and they love their jobs. So with that, let's open it up to any questions we have or comments. That was a lot, right?
Great. No, a lot of really good information.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go read some on that thing.
Yeah, and of course, I can be reached through my email, which is not there. But through SBDC, I can be contacted through SBDC if need be. Like I said, I'm a consultant. Yeah, anything else? Yes.
Do you ever do like team building activities for restaurant staff so that they're able to, or is like the whole thing is a team building activity?
Yeah, and so the whole thing is like participating in
Like walking on fire.
yeah, the suck, as we call it in the military. It is usually during meetings we try to do some sort of team building stuff. My experience in the restaurant industry, the more corporate you get, the more, you know,
Less fun it becomes.
well, well, yes, because there's more rules, and from the ownership side of it, yeah, mixed. Yeah, you don't want people drinking on the job, right? And like stuff like that. And in the corporate world, there's like zero tolerance on that, and you see like that's just a small example, right? And in the private world, private business world, a lot more things get to happen. I think a lot more cohesion is built in like privately owned businesses than like corporate stuff. But when you go to those corporate meetings, yes, it is boring, and there's like the printed out stuff you have to follow and all that stuff, right? They do team building exercises, you know, like the standard corporate team building,
Right.
like building pyramids and trusting each other and all that kind of fun stuff. The trust falls, yeah. Yeah, no trust falls. Someone might get hurt.
Do you, I had another question. Do you have what we would call stand-up meetings in manufacturing? Like, I assume everybody kind of like, I guess that picture is an example. I would think the manager's like, okay, this is what we got today. We need to do this better. Remember to wipe the floor, whatever.
No,
No.
no, not
Okay.
at Benny's.
Okay.
During big events, 100% yes.
Mhm.
During like big days, yes. it's usually just kind of like a, hey, this is what's happening today, because the staff is so small, right? Like if I had a staff that big, I would die. Like the labor, I'm just looking at the labor at that room right now. Listening to that guy talk is like $1,000, no joke. So no, it's usually just disseminated, and then there's meetings. Usually when new menus come out, stuff like that, there's meetings. The staff is really small. It's I think it's like fluctuates between, let's say, 15 and 18 people. And so the back of the house, at any time, the front of the house is usually 3 is the most. It's going to be in the front of the house, maybe 4, 2 bartenders. Then the back is going to be like, I have a hard rule, no more than 3 people at the same time in the kitchen. So we have a small kitchen that works very diligently because we want to keep labor costs down. That's a constant thing. Labor is a constant thing for small businesses. It's what will end up killing us if it gets out of control, right? So that kind of communication is awesome. This is best practice. This image right here is best practice for this restaurant,
Yeah.
right? We just simply haven't created that culture. And this obviously, like if you just look at this, does that remind you of the bear, that program, The Bear?
I haven't gotten into it actually.
Oh,
Exactly.
take some blood pressure medicine before you.
And he like,
This is pretty standard for like Michelin star stuff. Like they meet before.
okay.
It's a very regimented, it's very processed, it's very like steps for everything, right? So
Interesting.
it's a culture thing.
More control.
More control because more control is warranted and needed,
Right.
right? Like from the small little plates outwards, it's just a different culture. Yeah. Which isn't necessarily wrong or right, correct?
No, it works for their restaurant.
Yeah. Anything else? And that answered all your questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Ben.